What's happening, everybody? It's your man Dame D NYDC. It's Friday, brand new two mics of Business Corner, and today, today's guest that's joining me on the other mic is going to really be bringing some really powerful and really impactful knowledge that so many of us, and I mean so many of us, we overlook, and sometimes we wait until the last minute, and then at that point we're scrambling. So today's guest is going to bring that expertise when it comes to estate planning and helping really to educate us on how to build generational wealth. And I hope you really enjoy it. She's a blast. I'm excited to have her here. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me bring to the other mic today's guest, Michelle Bell. Michelle, how are you doing today?
Well, I don't know. After that awesome introduction, I mean, I feel pressure right now.
Hey, look, that's what we do here, but pressure makes gems, iron sharpens iron. And this is why you're here today, because we really need that, especially in the Black and brown community, where we sometimes find ourselves behind the eight ball in these areas, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And very, very fair assessment to say. And
Yes.
I'm curious to know, like, how can someone, and actually, you know what? Let me stop. Let me back up for a minute. Before we get into the conversation, I need to know who Michelle is. I want our audience to know who Michelle is. Give us some background and some information about Michelle Bell.
Oh, wow. Okay. So my name is Michelle Bell, and yes, that is my actual name. If you start singing the songs, I won't get mad because people do that. I am a wife. I'm a mom of three. I live in a three-generational house. My in-laws live with us, along with
Okay.
our children. And let's see, I am a business owner for over a decade. That
Mm.
sounds, I know, right?
Hey.
But estate planning is dear to my heart because I'm the last of four kids. And
Hmm.
actually, I was talking to my mom when I was 15, and 5 hours later, she was dead. So,
Oh,
mom did
wow.
not have an estate plan, not
Wow.
what she should have had. And so I
Right.
personally, have dealt with what comes along with that, the emotional, the financial problems, the like all of that comes along with it. So it's more
Right.
than just documents to me. It's like, okay,
Right.
look, I can tell you what it feels like to not have that done. I always compare it to like a pothole because I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have potholes. So I can tell you what it's like in the bottom of
Right.
that pothole because I've been there. So there's no need for
Mm.
you to feel that or know what it's like because I can
Right.
describe it for you. You don't need to do that.
Hmm.
So I do this to kind of help people not have to go through the stuff that I went through.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's is you're living your life, if you will, through your services that you're giving to others, which is incredible when you really think about that whole dynamic of going through that. And I think that in a fair assessment, that may be what makes you special in a sense to those when they meet you and they actually work with you. Because I had the same feeling. There was just something special about you in our first meeting and our first conversation. And again, I don't know. Then too, being from New York, and there's a lot of correlation I get there. But beyond that, when just talking as human beings, there's so many people that can relate to that story or can relate to something, some type of trauma that kind
Right.
of put them or led them to that situation. And what I'm curious to know, when you talk to somebody, small business owners or
Mhm.
just people in general, who are faced with creating an estate plan, like what do you kind of sit down with them and walk them through so that one they can kind of come overcome that initial fear or that initial, oh my God, like what do I do? What do I do?
So usually people, by the time they come to me, it's either been referred by someone that they know, or they've been to one of my webinars or in-person event. I'm pretty creative with it because I like to create an experience for people because I know this is such a scary topic for folks. I don't know
Right.
why, but they think like the Grim Reaper is going to come and get them after they talk with me. And I just try to assure them, like, look, I know people are like, oh, if I put it in the atmosphere, it's going to happen. Listen. If
Mm.
you get sick or you pass away after talking to me, you had some internal stuff going on. I didn't have anything to do with that. Okay. So I like people to know that. And that's how I talk to them, like
Right.
regular people, regular person. And it usually lightens the mood. And at that point, they feel comfortable asking those questions because they know I'm not going to give them a bunch of legalese. Because, I mean, really, if you don't understand what that stuff means, how does that help you? You can't
Help
make
you.
great
Yeah.
decisions if you don't understand what it means. So
Right.
I'm, once I do that, people feel a little more comfortable. Then I tell them a little bit about, like, look, it happened to me. Don't do that to someone else, especially someone you love. I mean, don't even do it to your
Right.
enemy.
Right.
that's
For real. For
that's
real.
diabolical. You
Yeah.
start
For real.
doing
For
that to
real.
your enemy. But
Yeah.
once you do that, then people loosen up and then they're ready to talk about, like, okay, so what is a will? What is a trust? What does it
Mm-hmm.
mean? Do I have to
Mm-hmm.
have Kennedy money to have a trust? Do I
Right. Hey.
have to do
Right.
all this stuff? And then they start telling me all of the things that they learned on the internet or things that they were taught growing up. And we just start, I start educating them
Right.
on what's
Right.
true, what's not, and how that works.
You brought up a very good point too that I think leads to really what I was going to go with the next question. One, a lot of us really feel like you said, you got to have Kennedy money to be able to do and move forward with creating these documents and creating the plans that you need. But I'm curious to know one specifically what are the key legal documents, if you will, for let's say a small business owner like myself, uh to have in their estate plan to protect their business and their personal assets first, and then how does that play into, let's say, if it's their family or some type of trust or anything like that that leads into their family, because I think that's key for small business owners to one way to create generational wealth through their business by being
Correct.
properly documented, protected, and so on.
Correct. Okay, so I'm gonna always say, as an attorney, it depends, right? Because that's how I like
Right.
answer to everything. But
Right.
all the documents are important, and I can tell you why. When
Okay.
you start a la carte and things, and you only get this, only get that, you're leaving a hole. So for it to
Okay.
be comprehensive and to protect you, like all the way around, you're gonna
Right.
need you're gonna need those documents. So let's
Okay.
list them. I always
Mm.
tell people pros and cons between a will and a trust. They decide which one works
Okay.
best for them, depending on their outcome that they want.
Right.
So will or trust, important, whichever one you choose.
Okay.
You're going to need what we call an assignment of your interests. So you own the business or your partner in the business, whatever role you have in the business, right? You need to say who gets that percentage,
Got
who gets
got
that
you.
role, who gets that if something happens to you. So
Mm-hmm.
ideally, if you're a partner, you want to make sure that the assignment and what's in your estate plan as far as who gets what and who can step in your shoes and take over
Right.
matches your partnership agreement, your
Partnership.
operating agreement. You don't want that to conflict with each other.
Okay. Right.
If you don't have a partner, then you have 100% of the business. You want to assign your interests of that business to the trust, and then or will, whichever one,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
it follows the instructions that you have in your will or your
Got you.
trust. Now, I
Got you.
tell people you should have an operating agreement. I mean, operating agreement. You
Right.
should have those basic documents to
Right.
say what happens to the business, what goes on day to day. Because again, we all know at some point you're going to pass away. You just don't know when it's going to
Right.
happen.
Right. Right.
So to be prepared, you have to always think of it as, okay, if I don't make it to work tomorrow, how is my business going to continue?
Right. So what's the trickle down effect or what's the
Right.
operating effect? Right. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm gonna tell you now, it doesn't happen like, okay, you let the state where you are know that, well, the person died, business has to go.
Right.
No, there's a
Right.
process that has to take
Right.
place. if you have clients, if you have team members, 1099 salary people, there's a process that has to go you have to go through,
Mm,
because they
yeah,
have to be
response.
taken care of. You can't just shut it down. Hey, they
Right.
died, it's over. That's not how that
Right. Yeah.
works.
Thank you for all you done. Bye.
Thank you
Right.
for coming.
Right. Right.
Right,
That's
leave your
crazy.
pass at the door.
Uh, and when you say though a will or a trust, so basically, it legally are they? I don't want to say one and the same because they're not, but do they offer the same mechanism? I guess, if you will. And when you're saying like a client has the right to choose one or the other.
So I explain what they do, pros and
I
cons,
got
right?
you.
So
Got
just
you.
to give you
Right.
a summary of it, like
Right.
it will, most people know it's a document that says who gets what and who's in
Right.
charge of making sure that happens. Trust,
Right.
same thing. Who gets what, who's in charge of making sure that happens. There's a few
Hmm.
differences between the
Right.
two.
Right.
So you have a will, only a will by itself.
Hmm.
Your family has to go through the court, which is the
The
court
right.
process, which is called probate.
Right. That's right.
You have a trust, you avoid probate
Mm,
as long as you put your assets into the trust. So think of the trust as a
the
bucket,
trust.
right?
Right.
Think of your trust as a
That's the
bucket.
key. Yeah.
You're
Mhm.
taking it like buckets you used to take to the beach. I could be dating
Yeah.
myself, but I mean, we took buckets.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to put
Okay. You
stuff
and I
in
both.
it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you got to put stuff
Mm.
in it to protect it, right? So a
Right.
lot of people buy a trust and it's pretty. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I got a trust. That's
But there's
awesome."
nothing in it.
But if you don't retitle, your assets, which is just a fancy
Assets.
way of saying stuff, if you don't
Right.
retitle that and put it into the trust isn't protecting anything.
Mm.
So those are, so they get to choose, one works, like a will only works when you've passed away. It's not going to
Gotcha.
help you while you're alive and you're ill.
Well, you're still alive.
Trust
Right. Okay.
exactly. A trust can help
Hmm.
while you're alive once you pass away.
Got it.
So a will, because it's filed with the court, is public record. So I'm in the state of Maryland where you can go online and
You can
you
find
can put
anything
in
about them.
anyone's name, whether you know them or
Hmm.
not. If they're
Right.
deceased, you put it in. You'll see all the document names. If you want to see the actual document, you click it. You pay 50 cents a page. You'll get an
Wow.
email in like 5 to 10 minutes of the documents you just paid for.
And you have all of it.
Whether you
Wow.
know them or not, you can even see what creditors they had.
Wow.
So
It's crazy.
it, it's public record. A trust is
That's
private.
crazy.
So
Right.
when I go over, that's just a few of the pros and cons. When I
Right.
go over that, the person decides, what they think
Which
is
way they
best.
want to go. Hmm.
Right. Now to finish answering your other question, the other documents, which is the key part, you
Hmm.
need documents in case you are ill. Because
I see what you're saying.
most people
Right.
think about, well, what if I die? I'm like, okay, but what if you slip, fall, hit your head, and you're in a coma? You're not dead.
Mm.
Technically, you're still alive, right?
True.
So things have
Very
to be
true.
in place for that. So who's going to make decisions for your business while you
While
can't
you're
communicate?
incapacitated.
Correct. And that's I was
Okay.
going to say
Okay.
it's called incapacitation, right? So that just means you can't communicate. You could have a mental disease, you could have a mental defect, you could be in a coma,
Right.
stuff like that. Who's going to run the
Wow.
business while that happens? Because you're not
Mm.
deceased. So most people are like,
Wow.
oh no, my spouse will take over. Well, what if your
What if
spouse
he
doesn't
don't
want
want to, or he or she don't want to?
exactly. My husband is not a lawyer. In no way, shape, or form does he want anything to do with the law. He has no interest in it, right? Not that he could, because it has to be another
Right.
lawyer, but still,
Right. Right.
he's cybersecurity. If something
Right.
happened to this man, I have no interest in going into cybersecurity.
I
Not
know
one bit.
that's right. I know
Not
that's
one
right.
part of it. He can have that.
That's a good.
So
That,
you have to keep those things in mind. So those are important documents, and that's where people hear about your healthcare power of attorney, your financial power of attorney. Sometimes it's called a general durable power of attorney because it covers
right.
financial and legal. But you have a
Right.
healthcare power of attorney. You have your HIPAA. Now,
Mm.
just to know the difference between the two, because I get that a lot. Power of attorney, you're giving people the power to
Mm-hmm.
do stuff for you. They're stepping in your
Right.
shoes. They're doing
Right.
stuff for you. The HIPAA does not allow them to do that. What it does is it allows these individuals to know your health
Right.
situation. It
Right.
allows them to be able to order medical records. It allows them to do that, but they're not making the decisions unless you say
See.
this person is the guardian over my
Right.
person and they can make the decisions. But
Right.
generally, it's not. You
Mm.
also have what we call the living will. Some states it's called advanced directive. Some states
Okay.
it's the same thing. And that's where
Wow.
you get to decide if you want them to life prolonging procedures. But in
Hmm.
general terms,
DNRs. You
you
mean
either
like that
pull the plug
DNR?
or you
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You code and you want them to bring
Yeah.
you back, or you don't want them to bring you back.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha.
Or you want them to bring you back after 60 days. You gotta give it a minute.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
might not
Nah.
have seen that little heartbeat go there. Wait a minute.
Nah. Sorry. Yeah. We ain't playing with this. Yeah. That's a
Right.
lot.
Wait, I gotta blink
It's a
twice
lot.
before you
Yeah.
pull it,
Right. You got to
right?
blink twice. Right. Exactly. Let me at least blink twice before you do anything. I wish. I love it. But that's a lot of great information, and I thank you for sharing because these are like just these little tidbits and chunks. I think it's really important that we pay attention to, and I think we have technology at our fingertips now, but there are professionals like yourself, and ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this or listening to this, don't be Google doctoring everything. Go get
A
yourself a
Google
professional.
lawyer.
Yeah, don't do that, man. Just
Wait
go
a minute,
ahead.
don't knock them.
I'm
Don't
not
knock them.
knocking them, but I'm just saying sometimes when you have a source, right? And and that's what platform is all about, providing sources that people who if you're in Maryland, the DC area, and you're looking for a source, you have a source now, and reach out to her, because the
Right.
information, get it firsthand. Like I say, don't go to her after you done researched in your law Google library, for 300 hours, bring it to her. She's not to say she's gonna laugh at you, but inside she's probably laughing at you. We're just gonna keep it a buck. But I want to change lanes though, Michelle.
Okay.
If I can ask, because you mentioned something too about managing conflicts between family members, and right, that's because that's usually like, if not the first thing, it's the first thing when someone is moving on and the family is left behind. Like, what kind of strategies do you or can you provide, or have you
Mhm.
had to, a funny story, maybe, or a story you had to deal with in a situation like that, and trying to help manage the conflict between family members over inheritance?
Oh, absolutely. So, do you mean before the person passes or after the person
However
passes?
you
Because
want,
it happens both times.
however you want to do it, however you
Oh
want to start,
gosh.
wherever you.
Oh man. All right. So most of the time I start with after because that's like always the
Okay.
part that most people can relate to. So
Okay.
after a person passes and the family is like, sometimes weddings and funerals bring out the worst in people, right?
Yep. Yep.
So after a person passed and the family is just really going at it, I try to diffuse it by saying, look, you're really upset at the choice that was made. Because nine times
Right.
out of 10, if I'm involved, there was a will or a trust. And it's like, look, the person made these decisions. It wasn't your cousin or your sibling or whoever that made the decision. You're really
Right.
mad at the person that passed away, but because they're gone, you can't yell at them. So you're yelling at the next best person. So
Right.
why don't we do this? Let's after we follow the instructions, because we want to get things done, we don't want to prolong stuff. Usually I'll have what we call a family meeting.
Okay.
And I if it's virtual, you're on my platform, so I can mute you, and I let people know I will mute. I will mute you.
All
Okay,
right,
so don't get
Miss
out of hand.
Moderator. Miss
Right.
Moderator's in the building.
Absolutely. And you get too out of pocket, I will kick you out of the family meeting. The if it's in person, then you get a talking stick and a
Mm,
timer.
okay.
So that way you really get to say what it is, and you cannot speak unless you have the talking stick. Now,
Got you.
people forget. So I look at them and I say, look at here, these family
Mhm.
meetings, I charged you a flat rate for this. You
Right.
still keep doing all this, I'm gonna start charging by the hour. And
Oh.
I want my money before I leave.
Oh. Oh. Oh.
So
Oh. Yeah, that makes a
usually people
difference.
are like, oh, okay, let's
Yeah.
let's let's
Yeah.
get it together. But
Right.
you know what the emotion is, to be honest. You know what the
Yeah.
emotion is. So
Yeah.
I've had people argue over, oh goodness, it's like the smallest things, and that lets you know it's really not about it.
About that.
They've
Yep.
argued over food that was in the refrigerator.
Huh? Yeah.
They've
Really?
argued over, I kid you not, they've argued over it was a pair of slippers.
Mm, mm.
Small
That's
things.
the
That's when
things.
you
Yeah.
really know exactly.
It's
That's
not
when you
about
know it's
it's
not
not really
about
about that
it.
the issue that you're there for, that
Correct.
they're claiming. Something
Correct.
deeper. Something deeper.
It is much deeper than that.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
have, I do have coaches and counselors and stuff that are in my network. So
Hmm.
usually if I can tell from the beginning, like if it's really going to be like one of those,
Yeah.
then I'll ask permission. Can I bring this
Makes
counselor
sense.
with me? Can I bring this coach with me? Can we have them online? Because I stay in my lane,
Right. Right. No, that
so
makes all the
that's
sense in
their
the world.
lane. So I try to do all of that in these family meetings so that it kind of alleviates because it is emotional.
It is. Yeah.
It's
Very,
very
very much
emotional.
so. Having been down that road, unfortunately, you learn a lot about people that are your family members. I
Say that again.
You learn a lot about them because I had to sit there and like I'm looking around like, yeah, how are we even related? Like, how did how did we even come from the same parents? Like,
That
really?
part.
I mean, like, I'm look, not to get to it. I mean, even in my situation, lost my mom. I'm the youngest, and
Oh,
I'm the one. I'm living out of the state, and I'm going through, and I'm like, you know, it just blew my mind in that instance. I'm listening to all of the things that were being said. Like, one was like, oh yeah, when you got your new car, it was newer than mine, and I'm like, well, I'm a baby. I'm 13 years younger than you. Of course, my first car is gonna look newer than. I mean, like just some of the things. I'm like, huh?
but
But
that's stuff that was bothering them before.
before, right? And never,
Before.
never knew, never had a clue. I really didn't care. I'm like, but yeah, it's just things like that you just find out. And look, you just gotta have patience, pray, be good within yourself, and just move on. I just told her, I said,
Easier
look,
said than done,
it
but I
is. It is. It really is. Because there was a part of me inside of me. It was like, man, if I can get you outside for like 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. All I need is 5 minutes. That's all I needed. Because that was a part of me. And then, I had to talk that part of me. That's the Taurus side. Look, bro, we ain't doing this today. This is not about her, me, us, this. This is about, mom and what needs to happen. So, but anyway, long story,
well,
long.
no, that brings up a good point though, because if it's before the person passed, I am an oh my goodness, I stress this to everyone. Do not keep secrets.
Mm.
I understand older generations, they don't want to discuss stuff with
I
you.
said,
They're like, oh no, if something happens, look in the drawer. It'll tell you what
right.
to do. Like, no,
Right.
no, and no. Talk about it while you're alive because you can actually alleviate some of those
Oh yeah.
old issues that will pop up afterwards. You can do that. You can
Yeah.
talk about it. Like, you'll know and tell them, like, look, I gave great grandma's hat
And
to
look,
Susie instead of you because
I
great
tell you,
grandma was at
even if
Susie's graduation 5 times and she wore that hat.
she
So
wore
I'm
that
going to
hat.
do right, but let them know from the
Look,
beginning and then talk about it. Yeah, people may be upset. Okay, fine. But
but that's what it was for me. We had that
yeah,
conversation. You knew what was coming, but you still wanted to fight about it. And that's
oh,
what,
of
like,
course.
and and I'm looking around, like I said, where we come from. We talked about this already. Why are we putting on this production? I just want to come here. I want to sign this piece of paper, and I want to go back to Virginia. I have nothing. There's nothing left in my mom's gone. There's nothing. I don't want the house. I don't want. Uh, I'm gone. So that. But you're right. I was blessed enough to have had that conversation because I know some other folks that have gone through that were really. I want to say it was almost like a blind side. Um,
Yeah,
just just and then the overwhelming presence of everything going on,
correct.
it really brings on so much more uh to the situation, the anxiety, and the whole 9 yards. So yes, it's very important that if you can, like you say, talking to our elders, if Lord, you're still here,
Our
had that
seasoned
conversation.
seniors.
Yes, please share it on with your family and your kids'
Mhm.
kids, and make everything nice and cool by when it's time for you to pass on over.
Yeah,
Man.
talk about it. But I do, if I can say one
Mhm.
thing
Yeah, yeah.
to, well, no, it's okay.
No, go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
watched your show, so I know you'll ask me this later, and I'll save it because it's a good one. I'll save it for that part.
No, well, go ahead. No,
That
no.
way, I'm gonna keep
While
you
we
all in suspense. Let's do
okay,
that again.
well, what Michelle wants me to ask her is, and Michelle, go.
No, wait. No, no, no.
And
Because I know you normally ask, like, what's one thing that we did not discuss?
and that's
You
well,
want to
that's
tell
where
people?
and well, that's where we are right now. Because I was here
Oh,
to
that's
say
what we're doing.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, because time is flying. Look, the show, great conversation, great education, and we are at that point. We're at the back end of the show, and
Okay.
all seriousness, there is that question that I always ask. You know,
Mhm.
is there that one thing that I did not ask you, Michelle, that you can share or are willing to share with our audience that I didn't ask you today?
Okay. So I'm actually going to give you a tip
Okay.
that I feel is great for everyone. So the thing is this, when you're approaching this subject, because I know it's hard to approach this subject sometimes because it's dealing with death and illness. When
Hmm.
you're approaching this subject with family, friends, or whomever that you're close to, domestic partner, spouse, whatever, whoever it is, approach it from the standpoint that your will or trust, when I say estate plan, that's what I mean. So when
Hmm.
your estate plan is your love letter to your family,
Okay.
you're basically saying, I love you enough that I'm making all the decisions now. So all you have to do is follow them and
Wow.
grieve.
Wow. That's
So if you
powerful.
approach it from that aspect, like, look, I love you. That's why we need to have this conversation. This is why I want to do this. It's easier to approach it. Like, don't go for the scare tactic, like, oh my gosh, you're gonna die. You're closer to death than you are
Right.
birth. Like, don't do that. Don't go from that side of it because it's easy to do that. Well, man, if something happened to you, I don't want to have to fight my siblings. I'm gonna be a single parent because your siblings are gonna take me out or take you out. Don't go there.
Wow.
Literally take it from the I love you stance, and you'll get more of a conversation from that because that's what it is. It's an I love you letter.
That is so awesome. That I love that. That's just
Hey,
it's really refreshing. Like you're 100% when you're dealing in that situation, or even just approaching or broaching that conversation. That is an excellent way of really because it made me. I don't know why all of a sudden I just got chills. I'm thinking of
that's
my
what it's
daughter
supposed to do.
and things. Yeah, no, it does. But I mean, it wasn't like in a bad way, but
Hmm.
it is a way to sit down and really have that conversation. Not like I hope the Lord has something still in store for me, but I am you're getting on at a certain age and you're getting to the other side now. You have more years behind you than you do in front of you, so you do have to start making that plan. So I thank you for sharing that tip. I am definitely going to use that tip. And before we go, Michelle, I want to allow you, please, give your social media. Where can our audience go out and find you, support you, call you, use your services? I want to make sure I give you an opportunity to get that in before we go.
Oh, I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to be very honest with you. I am more of an IG person than anything else.
Okay.
So IG, it's the Michelle Bell ESQ.
Hmm.
So you can find me on there. Facebook, it's under the firm MC Bell Law Firm. But IG, you get to see me as a sports mom. My kids play baseball, so you'll see that, and you'll see the information about estate planning and stuff like that. That's where you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn as well, under Michelle Bell. And I will say my website is mcblawpllc.com. But
Okay.
Eventbrite is where I really have fun because then you
Okay.
get to see the creativity in my events that I host. And you get to see me live, webinars, and in person. And all of this shenanigans shows up.
All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your man, Damon Cunningham, aka Dame DNYD. You're watching Two Mics Up. Make sure you continue to watch, subscribe, like, and follow Two Mics Up, like it says there on the banner. You can follow us across all social media at Two Mics Up, right there, IG, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Two Mics Up. And like we do at the end of each and every show, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you with a couple of things. May you all stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.
007.